Necromunda is a vast world, ancient even by the standards of the Imperium. Much of our knowledge of this industrial hive world is limited to the clan houses and their constant wars for supremacy, but there is so much more to discover. These works, based on Servator Gellen's Seminals, we will be shining a light on some of the peoples, regions, and settlements of Necromunda, delving down into that world's lore. First of all, let's have a look at the town of Dust Falls. Dust Falls straddles the divide between Hive City and the Underhive of Hive Primus, and is a centre for gangs, guilders, and criminals. Much like most things in the Underhive, Dust Falls was created by chance. Much of the lower hive is made up of domes, each a cavern of plasteel, pipes, factories, and hab blocks, all stacked up on top of each other. Between these domes, even more tunnels, conduits, and cables link everything together. Over centuries of neglect, the space between the domes gathers dust. A lot of dust, among other things. Imagine, if you will, a septic tank on your roof started leaking. Sometimes this dust builds up so much it causes a collapse. Such is the case with Dust Falls, an avalanche of powdery detritus smashing all the way down to Hive Bottom. Around the ragged hole left behind, the settlement of Dust Falls grew, a place where travellers from above and below could traverse the hive. While the disaster that created the settlement has long since faded into memory, the dust still falls from above. A fine pale rain that covers everything and gives the town its name. The wealth of Dust Falls comes from the Abyss. This is the name given to the yawning chasm that dominates the centre of the town. Scavengers, gangs, and guilders all use its hanging cages to be lowered down and winched up and out of the Underhive. Given the depth of the Abyss, literally miles of dark all the way to Hive Bottom, landings have been built at various heights down the shaft face. Some lead to other settlements like Two Tunnels or Dead End Pass, whilst others have their own transport cages leading down into the bad zones below or even deeper. This area in the middle of the settlement is collectively known as the Gates, and is why most people come to Dust Falls. The town itself hangs from the upper edges of the Abyss and sprawls out into the wreckage around it left by the ancient avalanche. Roads wind their way through the morass and on towards Hive City above, and are constantly filled with traffic. The second most important part of Dust Falls is its markets, known locally as the Haggle Market, or just the Haggle. Here the wealth pulled up from the Underhive is sold to traders from Hive City and tourists who visit the town for a taste of the wild frontier, though one that is not too far from home. The importance of Dust Falls also means that both the guilds and the clan houses have heavily invested in its infrastructure. Warehouse silos and guilder slave pits litter its outer streets. The town's larger structures are the fortified Traders' Tower, controlled by the Mercator Gelt, and the Six Clans Drinking Hole, designated neutral ground by the clan houses. The size of Dust Fall also affords it a Palanite enforcer presence, and Precinct 1313 looms over the settlement entrance like a dark sentinel, its troopers watching travellers come and go through the sights of their guns. Like most Underhive settlements, Dust Falls is a den of criminality, tempered by the greed of the guilders and the brutality of Lord Helmar's enforcers. It is ruled over by a loose alliance of civic leaders and guild procurators, tolerated by the local enforcer Precinct Proctor. In fact, Proctor Claus Bauhain doesn't care much about the goings-on in Dust Falls, as long as the caravans keep running and the gates stay open. Only twice has the Proctor mustered the full might of his command. Once, it was to lock down the town when Lord Helmar's 17th son, Gilbarn, was found passed out in the Haggle parlour room. The second time was during the Great Plague zombie outbreak of '93, famous for Bauhain's Chief Sergeant Roscoe barging into the taproom of the Six Clans and deputizing everyone sober enough to stand. The day-to-day running of the settlement falls to two individuals, Mistress of Coin Malevia and Narco Lord Balthazar van Zepp. Together they govern the guild and criminal businesses respectively, and despite their differences, get along quite well. Gangs find equal employment with both, and there is more than enough wealth flowing out of the abyss for them to enjoy. This does not always prevent conflicts, as neither Maleva or Balthazar are the type to play with others. After all, in Dust Falls, death by crossing Malvera or Balthazar is the second most common cause of fatality, right behind drinking, the Six Clans' second best. For the most part, Balthazar tolerates the hefty bribes he must pay to move chems up into Hive City, whilst Maleva ignores the screams of those who displeased the Narco Lord as they are thrown headfirst into the abyss. All told, Dust Falls works for the various parties involved in its dealings. Discounting the crazies, like the Brotherhood of the True Resurrection or the Hunters Triumvirate, it is pretty safe by Necromundian standards, making it one of the most important settlements in Hive Primus, as one of the gateways that guard the Underhive.